Check 1 2. Hello everybody. Welcome to the show. Alright. Thanks for tuning in once again. I am your host, Jimmy Ruffian, reporting live from Ottawa. We got hopefully something fun and interesting on the show today. I got into it with a guy on Twitter about a really silly point of contention. And I thought I'd throw out the offer that, you know what, if you want to continue this conversation, come out on the show and we'll talk about it. And he has evidently accepted that invitation. So we're going to debate on, well, you'll see what it's about, but essentially his ideology is libertarian, and anyone who watches this show knows that's not entirely what we do. Here is promote libertarian thought. I have quite a few points of contention on that, but it's a little bit more of a specific talking point, and that should be here in a moment, by the way. So you'll see what it's all about. But the one thing I did want to touch on here before we got into that call. Speaking of which, I'm going to make sure that we're going to connect on Zoom. I'm going to make sure the meeting is working and everything's good. Okay, so John is in the waiting room. So he's waiting to come on. There's a part of me that's somewhat thinking this might be painful, but like painful in an entertaining way. There's like a slight, anytime you're debating folks like this, there's this essence of dread of how silly it might be, or delight. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, the one thing I did want to talk about briefly, and we'll probably touch on it depending on the length of the call, which is set to happen in the next few minutes, is here, right? Open a new tab here. This right here, the 2023 Conservative Convention is happened recently, just this past week, and hence the topic of this show. In the title there, you see the sort of American influence on Canadian politics. Anything, particularly when you're talking about conservatism. Hi, welcome, Nat. And things of that nature. When you see conservatives or the right wing under a obviously, kind of funded effort, influencing something in politics, say particularly anti-trans rhetoric, it's only a matter of time before you see it copied up here. And we've seen right-wing movements kind of emulate Trump and Trumpism, and this is kind of the latest example of that. The note on being anti-woke that Republicans have been hammering on for the past little while is, of course, now being completely echoed by Canadian conservatives. And this motion is just an example of that. It's the latest example where they're like, yeah, we're going to do something about these trans people too, in using the same verbiage, the same language, and it happens over and over again. So when I get like Americans going, you're a Canadian, why do you even care about what's happening down here? This is the exact type of stuff as to why. Yeah, I'll move over a bit for you, Nat.
And that's the thing. I don't think I'm on.
Oh, I got to turn you up.
Hello. Okay. And that's the thing too, is that they learn from the U.S. They throw things at the wall. They, see what sticks and what doesn't, and they try to refine the rhetoric. And so when they come up here, this kind of wording very political speak. We're just here for women's rights, right?
When has any
Literally-
conservative movement been all in for women's rights?
Yeah, like literal bullfucking shit. Like,
Yeah.
tell me that every single fucking person.
Hi, Jessica.
Hey, Jessica. Tell me that every fucking person in the CPC who would agree with something like this would not, in the same breath, bitch about women's only gyms, right?
Yeah.
They'd be
That was the rhetoric, just like a couple of years ago? That people were going like, oh, how could you exclude an entire gender?
Yeah.
Eh,
Like, it's all of this is it's just purposeful to be able to figure out what groups they're able to get away with excluding right now, and to isolate them and scapegoat them, right?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't new. So I know that it seemed for a bit that trans acceptance was getting better across the board, that LGBT issues at large were getting better across the board, that women's rights were getting better across the board. Well, they fucking hate that.
Yeah.
And so, just being able to see where they can, get their foot in to try to take back all of that. Trans rights are, at the top of that. If they can narrowly define what makes a woman, great. Now we can use this against LGBT folks. Now we can use this against cis folks. Like, this is literally just about them wanting to control how people are able to.
Well, the whole bathroom thing obviously affects cis folks, like, immediately. So many people I know personally have been affected by this idea of, like, enforcing this gendered bathroom ridiculousness, to the point where cis women who just happen to appear masculine are being hassled just for using the bathroom, that they're identifying with their birth sex. They are cis. They are not trans. And they are quite clearly women. But the fact that they look masculine enough that it's questionable to a bigot who wants to poke his nose in somebody else's business, this has absolutely happened many, many times.
Yeah, and so that part's not even new, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's been happening for years.
It might be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like,
probably
even
always
before
happened.
we had this kind of conversation about enforcing this stuff,
Yeah.
cis women have been hassled in this way.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things where it is the enforcement of gender binary and gender presentation is not new, but more people are hearing about it as they figure out their wording and how they're going to try and sell it, right?
Yeah. Which is really weird, because, like, it's pretty obvious that, in American politics, if this is who they're looking to, the trends are not going in their favor on this. This anti-wokeism speak is not even big with their voter base.
Yeah.
Something like 70% of Republicans don't really care. It's not an issue to them.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're like, yeah, this is something we got to, really hop on and capitalize it and fire up the base. Like, how?
Well,
why?
because the most active and unhinged members of the base want this.
Yeah.
Right?
When you're
And
talking
so
about that
whereas
30% that
yeah.
do consider it an issue.
Whereas the folks who the folks who still vote Republican will continue to
it
vote
won't turn them
that way.
off.
No.
Yeah. It's not
Like-
going to win them over, but it's not turning them off.
Yeah,
either,
they don't care, but also they don't care to change their vote because of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we got John waiting in the waiting room on the Zoom call here. So we're going to bring him on and see what he has to say. And we're going to admit John in. I'm not too experienced with Zoom, so I'm not sure.
I use it on the daily, so I just wiggle you can see the participants right down there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
He's
da, da, da.
joining. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a moment for, like, their video and their audio
they
to get
got to
all
make sure
sorted.
their audio's good. Yeah.
So yeah, this is what I go through every day. Be like,
Yeah, you're pretty experienced at this Zoom stuff.
yeah.
I'm glad
With
you're
the waiting
excited,
too.
Jessica. I don't know what to expect, to be honest. When we're talking about like people on Twitter, so I'm not doing on video because you don't know if like is somebody who's just going to try and flash their genitals on the thing. So this is just
like literally,
this is just going to be audio. This is just going to be audio.
I was literally wondering if like the waiting was because he's making sure that his video is set up to like
do something inappropriate on the
air
or
right
something. Yeah.
So also with my experience with Zoom is that sometimes they just have a heck of a time because like in my work meetings we alternate between like Zoom and Teams. Oh, well, look, he's joining again.
Okay.
So is he joined? Are you there, John?
Yeah, I don't see another name on the screen because you'd see
so
it
wait,
there,
it
right?
still says waiting room. So I'm a silly goose and I will go play in the pond. So admit all. Just admit all.
Okay.
Join ing.
Okay. Looks like he's on board.
He's join Ed. Hey, John. We're just talking about the failings of technology and you getting stuck in limbo.
Are you there?
Oh yeah, sorry. It took a moment for it to acknowledge that like he's now connected to audio. So that's
okay. Okay. So are
you?
Okay. Okay. Well,
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thanks for coming on. First and foremost, now to introduce you, I haven't quite told the folks on the air yet what the debate topic is, because I wanted to have you basically set that up. Explain the position that you have that kind of started this thing off.
Right. So yeah, hope you can hear me all right. Thank you very much for the invitation. As I said in the email, I think Twitter is a great place to get the ball rolling, throw a tweet here and there, and then kind of having a change. But after a while, it just becomes, as you said, it's just a wall of text. And we all have busy lives. So just using Twitter between, having a coffee.
Yeah, it gets a little cumbersome to the conversation.
Yeah, you're not going to really develop a topic there. So yeah, thank you for setting this up. Right. So as you said, everything started after I replied to a tweet from Nina.
That's Nina Turner, American politician.
Nina Turner. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Which, I mean, I'm not in the U.S. You're not in the U.S. We all follow her because she knows how to use Twitter. She throws in those very provocative tweets, and then she elicits an answer from both sides, from the left and from the right, and all her tweets are always followed by very interesting discussions. So she posted a picture of a tennis player, and kind of Clay was like,
"Hello,
5."
Oh yeah, you're there. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, you did cut out for 1 sec, so we're just letting you know that we missed a little bit.
All right, sorry. Yeah. So the I guess the important part of the conversation, the tweet that started was, I'm going to read it textually because it's sometimes confusing how you can acknowledge that some people work hard and deserve what they earn, Black athletes, but you can't acknowledge the same about white capitalist leaders of industry.
Okay.
Of course, I'm also throwing a provocative tweet there. I mix some race in there. I mean, that's just the rules of the game, right? If you want to get engaged in Twitter, you're going to put something provocative and short, and that got the ball rolling. So
okay, so your fundamental position that you described there is you considered it, I guess, hypocritical of Nina that she would congratulate an athlete, but ostensibly not some captain of industry. Am I right?
Yeah. And later on, you say something quite correct. Like, no one is forced to congratulate anyone. So
yeah.
I'm not
so like
that,
what I'm wondering there, like
right?
kind of my first question in that, I guess, is was there some point where she was like, I don't congratulate the guy who started a successful restaurant chain? Like, did she say something along those lines?
No, not at all. It's just like I will never picture her tweeting a picture of John Rockefeller and saying champ.
Right.
Like, if you compare John Rockefeller and an athlete, I mean, they're both two persons who basically had a very useful set of skills that they worked very hard to develop. in a competitive environment, right? So John Rockefeller was competing with other oil magnates of his time. She's competing with other athletes, and at the end of the day, what you get is you get to a position where you become the leader of your market, or in your case, the leader of your tennis category.
Right.
And I think, yeah. So that's what I say. That's my point. Yeah.
Okay. And so you would find the accomplishments of somebody who is successful in capitalist business to be equal in proportion to what an athlete does when they go up and perform their sport.
Yes, you may say that. Yes, an athlete, and yeah. And considering that nowadays sport is just more another capitalist. They're just selling entertainment, right? It's like which sport sells more entertainment, and how can you capture more dollars from those items, right? So, in a sense, yeah, very, very simple.
So, but we're talking about like an individual winning at a tournament, right? They're the individual that's going up and performing the task that's essentially creating the value of the event, right? So what does, when somebody owns a business, right, what task are they performing that they're going up and making, the product? Like you use the example of a restaurant. What is the owner of the restaurant doing that earns him the congratulations of the success of that business as the sole or as the proprietor or whatever, in a way that's congruent to the athlete?
Well, I mean, in one of the tweets I just mentioned the stats. I think the top of my head, I may be wrong, but like 80-something% of restaurants go bust the first year. So it is clearly
at least in Ontario, 70% of all small businesses fail within their first 3 years. Right.
So, and I think that number I saw maybe specifically to New York, but I mean, anyway, it's a very competitive business, right? So,
but if you're the number one business, right? What is it specifically that the owner is doing that creates the value of that business that makes it number one in the same way that's congruent to the athlete?
Okay. Well, I mean, you're just jumping ahead and saying if you are the number one business, how do you become
we're talking about congratulations. We're talking about congratulations, right?
Okay. How do you become the number one business? I mean, how you don't become the number one business overnight. You become the number one business because you start with an idea. You have a set of skills. You work out. So let's stick with a restaurant example because it's an interesting example, right? So you need to choose where you're gonna open the restaurant. I mean, there are many open. You can rent many places.
Not really. Like it's not like there's a wealth of like empty places. You gotta, like, you maybe have one or two properties. Like if you're looking in a city like Ottawa or Toronto that I might be familiar with, there's probably like a couple places open within a convenient window that you're able to buy. Right.
Okay.
So you don't have an open map.
You don't have to buy a place. Okay. Let's say that you can first start choosing between 2 or 3 cities, then you want to go to certain area of the city. Like, do you want to go for a high end?
But what is the value of the restaurant? Why do people go to the restaurant?
Right. Yeah. Well, the first thing that you need to have to go to a restaurant is the restaurant, right? So you keep jumping ahead. I'm saying it is not easy to start a restaurant. You're gonna make several decisions. Are you gonna use your savings or you're gonna get a loan? If you're gonna get a loan, these are decisions that the guy who you said who became the first in the industry. These are decisions that he had to make, right?
Okay.
You need to. You're gonna have an option of 12 chefs. Which one you wanna hire? Right? You wanna go for a chef that is doing more of, I don't know, catering to vegetarianism, or you're gonna go. So you're gonna have a set of options.
You have a business plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're gonna have a business plan. You're gonna select. You're gonna hire people. And
Okay.
do I want to use waiters, or do I want to offer an option where people have an app and they order in their phone and then they go and pick it
Mm-hmm.
up on the,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
these are all decisions that are made by
Okay.
the business owner,
Okay.
and these decisions eventually can make you a success or failure. I mean, you can
Right.
end up
Right.
opening
Right.
multiple branches. You can, right?
Right.
So so that's that's the point
Okay,
when I
but
say,
like
like, this is
let's get to the core of it. Yes, you have to make a series of decisions in the same way that an employee might have to make a series of decisions in the sense of like
yeah,
am I going to work for this guy? Is he worth working for? Am I going to invest
yeah.
my time in bolstering and building his business?
Hmm.
So given that, what creates the restaurant's value? Once you have the restaurant, once it's open, what happens on the day to day that creates the product that people buy?
Well, you have hired people and you have a set
You
of
hire people.
instructions that they follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Of
They
course,
have a set
but
of instructions that they follow. Okay.
I mean, this you see the picture that Nina Turner posts, right? You see the tennis player and you see a
Yeah.
lot of people in the background.
Right.
So the people who are sitting there, they were letting into the stadium. They had to buy tickets. They had to
Mhm.
go through gates.
So you think a spectator at a sport is equivalent to an employee at a restaurant?
I think he
Well,
was thinking more like a patron of a restaurant.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, no. What I'm saying is like the tennis player there. She
Yeah.
was able to play in the stadium that
Right.
day
Right.
because there were lots of employees who were also contributing to
Yeah.
her.
But they all got
Yeah.
paid by
So-
that business. Like the business is the sporting organization. An athlete.
Yeah.
Mhm.
An athlete is the show. They're creating the product that the reason people are showing up.
I feel like I feel like the restaurant analogy, having like the business owner, the business creator, I feel like that's more analogous to the coach.
Yeah.
Because it's
I
largely,
was exactly going to say that. It is
Yeah.
much more analogous to the coach because who is performing the athletics, so to speak, at the restaurant? It's the kitchen.
Mhm.
It's the waiters. They're performing the task that creates the value of why people go. But sure, the coach, he's done a lot. He's helped shape that athlete's technique. And I'm sure the coach got plenty of congratulations and a handsome cut of those winnings, right? But it's the
Yeah.
athlete that's going up and performing the task. So would you consider it accurate if instead of Nina congratulating the athlete, it was just a picture of the coach saying this coach won the event? Would that be
No,
appropriate?
No,
No,
not
that
at all,
wouldn't
not
be.
at all.
No.
Well, but the guy who started the restaurant is not simply a coach, right? It's his idea.
Well, that's essentially what he is. His idea got it
No, the
rolling,
waiter,
but
no,
he's
the
not
waiter.
performing the task.
No,
He's not
the way-
creating the value.
The people performing the task are replaceable. The same way that the people who let
So is the
you
owner
in
of a
into the
restaurant.
stadium-
A restaurant closes,
Yeah.
another one opens back up. It's perfectly replaceable.
Yeah, and
Well,
like businesses change ownership all the time.
Well,
too.
yeah, of course. But what does it mean? It means that you tried and you failed. I mean, the same way that
Same
if
way
you-
an
if you
athlete
wanna-
might try and fail, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not exactly. So you're making my point. They are comparable.
No,
They're two people
they're-
who have their skills. They're absolutely comparable.
I
You
mean,
have
I
two
think-
people who started from nothing.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt for a minute. I think that we're boiling this down like a little bit too much. I think that if we're trying to make things that are so separate the same, it's kind of like.
Well, that's the thing. That's my premise
hold
is
up.
that this
It's
is
kind
a
of like
bad
me-
example.
Well, it's kind of like me comparing myself, like I just won a hot dog eating contest against a kindergartner. Like
Yeah.
it's just kind of like these things. It doesn't really, you
yeah,
know.
when you're
once
talking
you-
about competitive sport, it's a
Well,
little more
just
organized than
once you start comparing,
industry.
like just who does the work, who deserves accolades, what we value out of labor,
Yeah.
what we value out of the person who comes with the capital, what they had to do to get it, how is this
Yeah.
Something that initially they, made some good investment choices. Where do they get the initial seed capital for it? Did they have connections? Is this family money? Like, there's so many, there's so many questions.
Well,
But even like besides that, when you're talking about congratulating somebody winning a sport, to congratulating somebody for running a successful business, it is not congruent in the sense of when you're asking the basic question, who creates the value?
It
right?
is absolutely because your answer is that your answer was because other people earn their money for them. Hope that helps fingers, right?
Yes.
So yeah, but the labor, the people cooking, the guy flipping the burgers, the guy opening the restaurant, they're replaceable. They are replaceable. They're not the ones actually providing the value.
So are athletes.
They're just
so are athletes. If that athlete didn't win, another one would have, right?
But that's the thing too, is that like if we're gonna follow the restaurant analogy, just having the business owner, like a business could change hands, not necessarily as a failure, but perhaps someone has built this up and then sold it, and then another business owner comes in.
Owners are completely replaceable.
They are, because like you won't necessarily notice the end result unless you're Tim Hortons and you've been sold to a Brazilian multinational.
Because once that restaurant's up and running and it's running beautifully, like I got a great chef, I got a great team in the kitchen, I got a great bunch of servers that is making this machine run very, very easily. That bolsters the value of your business, especially when you sell it. So when that new owner comes in, he's probably not going to change much. He's probably just going to like continue on absorbing the excess capital that labor created, right? So when you're talking about congratulating a business like this, I don't think it's congruent to specifically zero out the owner without recognizing the people that actually perform the function. And that, to me, that's what this comes down to. Who is performing the function? In this case, it is clearly the athlete, just as it is the employees that make the restaurant work on a day-to-day basis, all of which are replaceable. On both ends of the spectrum, they're all replaceable.
Yeah, but you don't replace the owner. I mean, I see your point where the owner can be changed. I gave you an example of Mattel, right? Mattel was started by...
Owners get kicked out all the time. Some like look at Steve Jobs.
Exactly. Because you may be a very good guy who created an idea and developed it, but you're not a good manager. So that could happen. My point is that these are completely comparable because when, let's say you are you start with a small restaurant, right? And then it becomes a success and you keep growing, and then you open a second branch and a third branch. Well, basically what you're doing is you're in a competitive environment and you're just winning and winning and winning. It is exactly the same of what an athlete does. And even if the owner is not the one flipping burgers and waiting tables, it's still his idea, and it is his allocation of capital that actually makes it happen. When Rockefeller came up with the idea of, hey, we throw away 60% of the byproducts of oil.
But they aren't performing the task. They aren't creating the value of that restaurant, right? They're injecting their excess capital into it that their employees earned for them, right? And then reinvesting that money to make more money for themselves. But it's still all employee dependent. There is no business without the employees. As replaceable as they are, you might be able to get a different person to perform that task, but that's still a person that needs to perform that task.
And it's also important that when you have, you can have a really popular restaurant, but if the head chef leaves, and I'm talking head chef because
that's ruined businesses. When head chefs leave. Yeah.
And I'm not talking about a when I'm referencing a head chef in a restaurant, I'm not talking about something like a Montana's or like a chain restaurant where it's basically you're using a microwave and
everything's basically
everything's
cut
frozen
down to
and like
the
pre-made
finest
and
point.
Yeah. I'm talking about like a smaller kind of restaurant,
family restaurant,
family restaurant, or like
or
like a Michelin 5-star restaurant, something to that effect. If you have the
Yeah,
wrong
of course.
chef, then or the popular chef leaves, then it is entirely incumbent upon the staff replacing them to be as a passionate, competent, and pardon me, still have a good working relationship with the people that either stay or come back to that restaurant. Like, I
Yeah.
I think it gets weird when we try to compare people who just give money as opposed to the people who actually need to maintain personal relationships.
That's a good
on top of.
location that I can buy and expand my business. I'm going to do that because it just, like, the numbers on the sheet make sense and I have the money to do it. Yeah, is a lot different than an athlete literally competing to be in the top spot in an organized, regulated event. It is rather an absurd comparison on its face, but even when you get down to it, like I said, the functional point is that what creates the value for the sporting event and what creates the value for the restaurant is everybody working in it, and performing the task that creates value. So yeah, like when you say, oh, why not congratulate the business owner? To me, as Nat points out, that's, well, why don't you congratulate the coach? Why aren't we giving him all the thanks? And like, let's just push the athlete aside. That doesn't seem right.
Well, I mean, well, why don't we congratulate the people who opened the stadium that morning? Why don't I mean, your point of that, the point that you say, you need labor to get
they should. Absolutely, they should all be getting their fair share of the money from that event. Thank you for making that point. The person who did open the stadium that morning should probably get paid just as much as maybe the person who happens to own that stadium. Maybe they should.
Has been a constant. That has been a constant for all humanity. You have needed labor, but
yeah.
So one example that Stefan Molyneux uses, he said,
but just because it's happened for all of human history doesn't mean it's necessarily a good arrangement for the laborer.
But also, capitalism hasn't been on for all of human history. Capitalism is a recent
Capitalism is about 400 years old in total.
That's why humanity has become so rich.
No, that's why a few people have become so rich. That's not why capitalism has become so rich.
Says something about running out of time. We have 10 minutes apparently remaining.
You have a total of 40 minutes.
So if you're gonna I give you the example of John Rockefeller, right? He saw that the oil companies, the refineries, were throwing away 60% of byproducts.
Where did John Rockefeller initially get his money from? How did he start?
It's irrelevant.
Well, that's extremely relevant. That's extremely relevant.
Because, like, let's say that I'm the best. Let's say that I'm going to interrupt for one quick second. Let's say that I'm the best athlete because I've gone out and broken the knees of all the other athletes who are competing against me. Am I still to be lauded as the best athlete because I excel at sabotaging and breaking knees of other people?
So you're not letting me finish my point.
No, I was just going to interrupt that. Then I'll let you finish.
Go on.
Right. So in the mid-19th century, if you wanted to read a book after sunset, you needed to have whale oil, right? You needed to buy oil made out of whale, and then you can turn on a lamp, and then you can read a book. The alternative was kerosene. When kerosene was invented, extracted from oil, it allowed more people to access a source of energy that allowed them to improve their life, right? Well, kerosene was made.
So Rockefeller invented kerosene.
No. Let me finish my point. Kerosene was processed from oil, right? You extract it from oil, and there are byproducts. 60% of the byproducts were thrown away. Rockefeller identified a created idea to use these byproducts to create other substances that can be used. So what he did was he had his idea managed to reduce waste. So there were all refineries before him, and there were refineries after him. There were labor on these refineries before and after.
But we're not talking about like the person who invented tennis, right? We're talking about people that perform tasks, do well at them, and who is more appropriate to congratulate. So if your basic premise is, Why would you congratulate an athlete but not a successful business owner? Firstly, people do that all the time. Maybe not Nina in particular, but she is obviously, like, bolstering a person's win at a tennis game. But to say that it's somehow inappropriate or hypocritical that you wouldn't do that is quite a stretch, wouldn't you think?
More than hypocritical, I find curious that she doesn't realize that basically she's congratulating someone who is equivalent to a business owner who, through the use of his
But
skills,
they're not equivalent to a business owner.
applied
Business owners do not perform they don't make the product. She is the product.
they make
That
something
athlete
more
is the
important.
product. That's why people are tuning in.
They make something more important. I mean, the business owner, when Rockefeller came up with this idea, he started.
Well, what's more important, having a owning the restaurant owning the building that the restaurant's in, or having people be served food? What is the more important function of the restaurant there?
Well, the owner doesn't necessarily own the building; he can rent it. Well,
own the business, whatever. What value is there in owning a business if there's no one working it?
Taking plates from point A to point B doesn't make any sense unless someone is hiring you to do it in a restaurant. So the actual labor that is, you go and take a plate and you bring it to a table, that doesn't add any value unless you're doing it in a restaurant. Same way that the amount of labor you put into something doesn't have any value unless someone wants to buy it.
So for the restaurant to function, for the restaurant to do the thing, it needs employees. It needs people to work it. It doesn't necessarily need somebody who owns it.
But also, if you are also the business owner,
you're more than welcome. Yeah, go ahead. Please.
Also, if you are the business owner who has the best restaurant, because you are the leader of the mafia and you've run all the other businesses out of town, it is actually relevant. That is why you're successful. So when you say that it's but if you're saying it's not relevant how Rockefeller got his money, so it's one of those things where it's like we should, and I understand that this is largely a moral, ethical distinction and difference of opinion. This is why capitalism is doing what it's doing right now. But from our perspective, these things are intimately connected and extremely important. And that's why a lot more companies now are engaging in ESG, environmental, social governance, third-party risk management, to make sure that people aren't going to be asking the questions of, hey, your chocolate is great. Where did it come from? Is this from
child slavery?
Child slave labor? Like, these are actually important questions, and businesses are having to account for these questions. So I don't think that just dismissively saying where Rockefeller got his money from isn't important is valid, especially today in 2023. It is getting more valid by the day.
Yeah, like how did Elon Musk come to own Twitter? It wasn't through a series of brilliant business decisions. I can certainly tell you that.
And how did Nestle become so powerful?
He was born into tremendous wealth, happened to sit on the board that developed PayPal, was so terrible at managing PayPal that they booted him. But because he happened to sit on that board because of his tremendous wealth and influence that he was born into, he made a tremendous amount of money off the shares once PayPal was sold, even though he had nothing to do with that business decision. And then he has, like he's one of the most prime examples of just continuously failing upwards because he's in a convenient position in life. So when you're talking about markets and business owners, again, being congratulated for their prowess as if it's the same as tons of people watching an athlete be the best that they can be at their sport, and saying these two things are congruent. So if you congratulate one, it's only morally apt to congratulate the other, is a pretty fundamentally absurd comparison given all of that. right?
not an absurd comparison.
Now,
okay,
But how?
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
like
sorry, I'm going to interrupt for
I'm
just
not-
2 seconds. I'm going to interrupt just because I want to say we've got 2 minutes and 45 seconds left. What I would like, because we can keep talking after Zoom is done, what I'd like to offer you, John, I want you to be able to summarize, based on our conversation, your position to make sure that we understand it, so that when the call concludes,
yeah, it's
that we
gonna
can make
it's
sure
gonna
that we
just end
understood
soon,
you.
and there's nothing we can do about
Yeah,
it.
so I want to make sure we
Yeah.
understood you, so I'm going to give you the floor now.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. So I think my position was the same as when we started. I'm not saying that it's morally she has to congratulate a business owner. I think I found it interesting how she can acknowledge a successful individual in a competitive environment who uses their skill set. I don't know if she may have had parents who are tennis, so she may have had some advantages, and she can understand and appreciate that. But when a successful person come up with an idea and develops it and turns it into a multi-million-dollar business that improves humanity overall, because Rockefeller improved humanity with the way he lowered the price of kerosene, I think she doesn't see it that way. That's basically my point.
Like
I mean,
Rockefeller wasn't like a chemist, though, right? Like,
No.
just to be clear, like when you say he got the idea, it gets really murky. There's so many other factors and influences in that outside of a regulated competitive sport that has a series of rules that make sure people have to behave a certain way so the competition is even and fair. You don't have that in markets. You don't. Like,
yeah, like even with the boxing,
don't
you've
need
got
that.
weight classes,
You
but
don't
with
you don't need that. Well, you have separation by gender and by weight classes, because people have different skills.
exactly.
But
yeah, but we're saying
you
when it
don't
comes
need-
to
you don't
commerce,
need
you
that.
don't have
But
that.
when it comes to open commerce, you
you
don't have that. It's whoever has the
because
most
you don't
money
need it.
and happens to put it in the place
You don't
that
need
makes
it.
more money wins.
let me ask
It's
you something.
gambling,
Let me ask
essentially.
you my last question. When you go into Amazon to buy a microphone, what do? You sort them by price. You check what gives me the best performance for the money I'm paying. That's what you do when you go buy a microphone in Amazon. You don't check if the microphone was built using metal from the Congo, right? So that's basically what consumers want, and that's what capitalist offers to consumers. It's as simple as that. There's no rules. It's a free market because
Well,
we
there
just
are
let
rules on
everyone
the
do what they want.
materials you can use to build a microphone, and there's very good reason for that. But we're saying it's.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Cut him off.
That's why I was trying to make sure he got enough time at the end, just because I knew it was gonna.
Yeah, like again, it's what really gets me about how silly this conversation was is that it's all absurd, incongruent comparisons. Oh, like, congratulating a captain of industry is the same as congratulating somebody who won a sport. It just, when you really get down to the nitty-gritty, it's not.
Well, it's like congratulating Mike Tyson for beating up a toddler. It's like you're not even starting off in remotely the same class.
And then to say, oh, like, well, Rockefeller got to -- because of smart business decisions. Again, it's a series. Like when you're talking about a series of investments, you're talking about like gambling. That's what it is. And sure, if you get to the top of that, you get congratulated with tons of money.
Yeah.
He became the richest. Like if he were still alive today, he'd be the richest person on earth. Now, but what did he do to create the value that people bought?
Yeah.
Nothing. He didn't do anything. He didn't invent, like, he didn't see the byproducts and go, in my brilliant scientific mind, I know exactly what to do with these byproducts and create things that are helpful to people. No, other people made those products.
And that's the thing, saying like, there's no standards for, any equipment. It's just based on price. That's why there's a lot of issues with purchasing products from areas that are less regulated, like some Chinese products, like, jewelry having cadmium.
Blood diamonds.
Blood diamonds. Like that's a big thing. It's a big illegal thing. You're legally not allowed
this
to.
If we were able to have a longer conversation with John, he did in other parts of the thread, I think say something to the effect of being kind of apologetic towards child labor and things like that. Oh, business owners are just going to do what they do. But the thing is, if you made that congruent, like let's make it more even with a competitive sport, where like tennis, where she won because she hopped over the net and beat her opponent half to death with the racket. and then proceeded to hop back over and continue, just like, oh, she keeps missing all the balls. I obviously won. That's like sort of what happens in capitalism when you don't have anything to rein people in terms of regulation and being fair and not poisoning, say the town over's water supply, with your industrial byproducts and things like that. Oh, but the consumers don't care about that. I'm sure the people who have to drink that water do.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that like consumer ignorance and apathy is not the same as
like the company doesn't advertise, by the way, we use metals from, the child labor. Like they don't put that information up front for the consumer to know, right?
No, often you need to sue them after the fact for the negative repercussions. But that's why companies more and more have to work in ESG, environmental social governance, into their policies and their understanding of the risks that they're undertaking by working with different vendors and in terms of their place in the world. Like these things are becoming more important, not less, especially with the rules that are being passed in places like the European Union. Like these things are getting more stringent. So, maybe you enjoyed or lionized the heyday of Rockefeller. Good for you. You're an outlier because the leaders of industry aren't going in that direction. They're trying to make things more responsible. Now, clearly, that's not everybody. I can't say Nestle
there's some
is
problems
all
with that. There's some problems.
I'm not saying Nestle is on the forefront.
I was actually going to ask you some follow because you know more about this sort of regulation than I do. And this this sounds like a self-governance thing. Right? Like is this up to the industry to sign a board to this? Are they obligated to do it in some way?
Depending on the industry, there's industry standards, there's industry regulations, there's
But is this in the form of laws, or is this
depending on what country you're in? It's regarding laws, depending on the country and also the different industry. Some people might not do business with you if you don't adhere to certain regulations, certifications, etc. So yes and no and
okay,
but dot.
Okay.
Like globally, it is not simple to say this is the answer.
Yeah. So apparently Coco, according to Jessica's comment here, had to point out to the ref that the woman she was playing against was breaking the rules, sitting and playing slowly. I don't know enough about tennis to know that's a rule that gets broken.
I don't know what that means.
But yeah, I can definitely say when you're talking about a one-on-one regulated sport, where it's two people competing each other just like for one to beat the other.
You're not allowed to pay the ball catcher to kneecap the other player.
Yeah. Like there's rules in place that keep the game fair that are not the same as when you're talking about the game of business, the game of capitalism, things like that. Like in most of the people who have invented life-saving medicines, life-saving technology that has certainly changed our lives, they're not the rich people for the most part. I'm sure rich people have invented things and things like that, but they're not the ones who end up being the captain of the industry. They have to sell their idea in order to get ahead or something like that. So there's so many more variables in place. So yeah, just the mere idea. And I like his admittance on a couple of things in that debate. Like, I made that comment to be purposely provocative. I like how he just sort of said that right out the gates. Like, well, yeah, that's why I responded to it being, the way I did. Like, hey, moron, these things are not comparable. So I was just being provocative. So yeah, you were talking out your ass.
So he was saying that neither of us are from the U.S. Do you know where he's from?
I actually don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where he's from.
Because like that, I mean, that would be nice context to, you know.
Yeah, that'd be a little different, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe. But like, you know,
it doesn't make him less wrong. Context.
And the thing is, and I like how he points out, like, oh, Nina Turner says things that are provocative in order to get the conversation going. Look at Nina Turner's feed. She is a left-leaning black woman, and every reply is a blue checkmark rightoid all up in her business. She has more KKK members in her replies than David Duke. You know what I'm saying? Cool. Like, she becomes a target for these things because she doesn't say things that are particularly provocative. She just says things that the right wing doesn't like student loans should be forgiven. Ooh, she's being so provocative on Twitter.
But also, I find I find it so bananas how someone would say, well, if you congratulate this person, then where's my pat on the back? Like, if you say that you like pancakes, clearly you hate waffles. Like, it's just...
Yeah, it's so...
It's weird.
It's so silly. So it's like, what, you want the world to give greater priority to congratulating captains of industry because apparently being filthy freaking rich isn't enough? Like, what's the angle? It's just so silly.
Yeah. It's like, cool, you can. I'm not, I've got other things to do. I'm not going to go through the fucking phone book or whatever and, look all the most the richest people and make sure to give them a shout out.
And another thing that I'm sort of glad he admitted was, maybe the people who opened and made the stadium work that day should get congratulations too. Yeah, maybe. Maybe they should be getting paid a lot more money instead of the owner of the stadium or the league or the sporting organization who's just sitting up there watching. Yeah, maybe they should. That's a very good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Let's work together and make that happen. It's silly bananas. Is there anything else that we're gonna talk on today? Because I know that billions of things have happened, and I know I've been talking for 53 minutes.
Basically the other topic was to talk about the Americanization of Canadian politics, or when you see the money in broad daylight and the dark money flowing upwards in this direction to influence our politics in the same way that it influences American politics.
Well, that's partly why I was wondering where he geographically is from, right?
Yeah.
Who is in your political geographic sphere leading the conversation on that? And also, why is Rockefeller such a big point of conversation? So,
I think like in his sort of very pro-capitalist libertarian mindset, because he is a libertarian, in case that wasn't obvious. Yeah. He looks at a guy like John Rockefeller, who would be, again, if still alive today, the richest man in the world. I think he sees him as a shining example of being just like the pinnacle of success.
Yeah, it's just no. I disagree. I'm glad he's dead.
I mean, the guy has buildings named after him in New York City. I mean, he's gotten plenty of congratulations. So just because Nina Turner and a left-leaning politician isn't going out of their way to pat a rich guy on the back, I don't think that's congruent.
They've got enough. Fuck off.
Yeah. But in my of course, like, more Marxist interpretation of things, which I believe is just in the sort of scientific sense the most correct one. What determines value? Who creates the value? Yeah. And are they getting paid proportionate to that value? Business owners don't create the value proportion to the money that they're taking out. Sure, they create some value. Sure, they're gambling. Sure, where they put their investments. Sure, what they decide the theme of the restaurant is going to be is all going to play a role in the success of the business. But that doesn't mean that it plays such a role that they should earn 1,000 times more than their lowest employee.
And that's the thing too, is that when it comes to folks like Musk, who was already so fucking rich before he bought Twitter, his kind of gambling is like him basically playing the penny slots. Like you can, when you have that much money, you can take big risks like this and tank them, and it doesn't fucking matter.
Sure, he's like what, 44 billion deep with the Saudis to borrow the liquid funds to buy Twitter. If he gets in a really tough bind, he just sells some of his stock. And there he goes. He's fine. He's going to live. And still have billions of dollars of value left over.
Yeah, and still be obscenely, immorally rich.
Yeah. So like it's not going to hurt him if he loses, right?
Yeah. It'll hurt his ego, but there's far more painful things that he should experience.
Yeah.
But
so like I don't know. It's like, what is the expectation? Nina Turner is supposed to go on and go like and congratulate Jeff Bezos for making Amazon. Like.
Fuck those guys.
Like, I don't know what the expectation is supposed to be.
Yeah, and like Jessica's saying, the class you're born into determines how many failures you're allowed to have.
Yeah.
Rich people fail all the time, but they can start again. Yeah, exactly. And even in terms of like, the working class in Canada, I have made so many bad financial decisions. And I'm not talking like investments and gambling, because I've never had that kind of money. I'm talking like taking a chance with a different kind of job that makes less and moving to a place where I wasn't sure if I was going to make enough. I can't afford to even do that anymore. I can't afford to take chances. And it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm in my 40s. It is everything to do with the fact that over the past 20 years, our buying power of the working class has diminished so much that the next time I make a really bad choice, we're moving in with your parents.
Yeah. We're getting on being middle-aged people, and might have to move back in with their parents at a couple wrong moves.
And I'm speaking from someone who has had the luxury, not from being rich, but from being working class, of being able to make
working class,
comfortably working. Well, even even when I was middle age, even when I was minimum wage working class, I had a lot more leeway to make mistakes before than I do now. We're fucked.
What?
Who? What?
Somebody just commented something. I'm trying to see that death culture.
Oh, Die Standing?
Die Standing was the name of my first punk rock band. So I don't know who that person is that just commented. Weird. Okay, well, hello, old friend. Die Standing has not been a band for 12 years or so. I think was the last time we played a show. So thanks for the deep cut there.
Yeah. Well, at this point, you might be Die Standing at work when you're 99 because you couldn't afford to retire.
Actually, well, since we're on the political podcast here, Die Standing was a reference to Emilio Zapata, who was a Mexican communist revolutionary, and I'd rather die standing than live on my knees was a quote he said, and that's where I got that band name from. So I've been into this shit for a while, and so it's just really absurd. And some of the information that he was trying to show me on Twitter came from Mises. And Mises is a Austrian economic think tank that is extremely right-wing and libertarian, and this was the source of a lot of his information. And I just very much doubt that's good information, So maybe we'll talk with John more in the future. Who knows? But what is it?
Jessica just said, speaking of political podcasts, Nat, you're always welcome on Opinionated Lushes.
Yes. Yeah, you should go on one day. Yeah, it's a fun show. You'll get sloshed on the air. Maybe they nearly killed me with their drinking game.
This is how I died. In the second half of September, we've got like some ridiculous things coming up in the next week, and so we're just hoping to survive until then. I should have more than 2 brain cells together to rub together end of September. So reach out, remind me, end of September, Jessica, and then 100%, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, the convoy. Going back to the American influence there, the convoy was such a classic example of that. All the rhetoric around, kind of getting a January 6th sort of vibe, but of course watered down and made more absurd because that's what Canada does. We can't do it just like the United States, right?
We just have to do it late and worse.
Yeah, exactly. Except Degrassi.
No, yeah, Degrassi was a gift.
Yeah, that was the exception to the rule there.
CBC, CBC is, I enjoy the CBC thoroughly. Episode Jimmy from Moscow will be available. Ooh, thank you, Jessica.
Yes, there we go. Read it there, folks.
No.
I'll be definitely sharing the link when that episode drops. Most definitely.
Yeah, because Jessica's fancier, and we just do this stuff live, and
yeah. Well, we did it live too. We did a live stream,
yeah.
but they don't do what we do, where like after we go off the air, the episode just stays up. They actually like have a release date for it and everything like that. So if you with them, if you miss the live show, you actually have to wait. So it creates a bit of an incentive in a way to watch the live stream.
Yeah. Whereas with us, you can just see us warts and all as it happens, and and for all
no editing, baby. Yeah. That's how we do it at the Rough Report.
Roughly,
exactly. And Convoy was a classic example of that. The People's Party. That sort of thing. Like, I mean, the U.S. has a People's Party, but it's very different from our People's Party. Our People's Party is much more like rhetorically and noticeably fascist, while the People's Party in the States is more like supposed to be, I guess, like very left and very communist, but it's also silly and reactionary at the same time. I think it's a bit of a psyop. It seems to be like AstroTurf psyop. Yeah. Like it's like this is we're trying to divide the left with this thing. That's what kind of it's a weird mix of things happening there. For the People's Party here, it's just like further right conservatives, quite noticeably. There's like no way of
mistaking
it for anything else. Yeah.
Cool.
But so like that continues. The old Pierre Trudeau quote about sharing a bed with an elephant. Every little shift, every little turn that the U.S. makes affects how and what we do up here, and like what our political language is, like the things we talk about. I don't know if I've heard Pierre Poilievre lean into talking about the word woke a whole lot.
I'm pretty confident he has.
He has?
At least recently, I've definitely seen that.
So, there's probably going to be even more of an uptick on this sort
definitely.
of thing.
No.
I have a feeling come closer to the election, this whole, like, housing crisis thing he's currently trying to lean into that we talked about last week on the show.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that's going to be replaced more with this sort of culture talk.
I don't know. It depends on if it seems to be resonating with people who don't fucking read his messaging on housing. Because if you look into literally fucking anything, you'll know that when he says housing, he doesn't mean that you can afford your rent.
Yeah.
You stupid plebe. He means that he's down with selling off the green belt and making sure that the landlord class gain strength, and that everyone becomes the renting class from here on out.
Yeah.
Because, having any kind of housing stability means that, you can decide to move, you can decide to change your job. You're not beholden by, several capitalists who weigh your fate in their hands.
Petty dictators.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that. We can definitely probably think of like a lot more examples of the American influence, like
deciding vaccines aren't a thing anymore.
Everything to do with that, like the QAnon and like Trumpism level stuff that again led to the convoy, but it led to all sorts of like other things as well. The language around Trudeau being a communist.
Well, they've been saying that for billions of years.
Yeah, exactly. But that's like it's something they've done in American politics always. ways. Like, Obama was a communist,
Yeah.
and Obama and Trudeau kind of came about around the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we continuously do this. So yeah, there's no doubt, if you want to have a fair idea of what the Canadian landscape for politics is going to be, watch
American media.
Watch American
7 years
media
ago.
for about 6 months to a year,
Yeah.
and then you'll definitely see it echoed up here almost to a T.
Yeah. What I would like for us to talk about next episode, I want to talk about the boogeyman of communism in media and what it actually looks like. Because the thing about folks saying, Justin Trudeau's dad is...
Fidel Castro?
Thank you. The name just fell.
That's my favorite conspiracy theory. I've said that so many times, but I love it so much because he does kind of look like him, so it's just hilarious.
So that's the thing, is that like the rhetoric is stuff like that. A, it's not illegal for your dad to be Fidel Castro. B, it's not illegal to be a fucking communist. And so the fact that any of this rhetoric is used
but, the free speech warriors definitely want communism to be illegal.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is that oh God. Sorry, Jessica's just saying this.
Yeah, he's apparently a right-wing libertarian guy, Jessica's dad. Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, so like I would just like to, because off the top of my head, I'm just thinking of 2 movie examples. I'm thinking of Julie and Julia, about the story of Julia Child, and the movie includes parts about her husband, who is working for the U.S. State Department, and how he was basically interrogated under McCarthyism for being associated with communists.
Yeah, secret
and then,
communists. The Red Scare.
Yeah, and then the same deal with I watch Oppenheimer in theaters, and so that went. There's a important plot point about Oppenheimer's brother being a communist and him being aligned with other communists, and that's what the whole trials and, well, not trials, just conversations and stuff and investigations, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what they were about. If you are associated with known communists, are you a communist? Yada yada yada. So I would like to talk more about that. I would like us to have
the Red Scare never ended. That will basically be the theme of the episode, I guess.
Yeah, and just basically of like what does the media think that means? What do average people think that means? Like, what the fuck does anyone think this means? You're a communist. Okay.
Yeah. ... Yeah. Like I could only guess in the obviously we'll expand on this. We're getting to the end of this episode, but I could only guess in the age of the Red Scare, it was. Sure, communism, like making communism the scary thing, was an important factor, but the backing behind that was Russia versus the U.S.
Yeah.
Right. So it was like I think they tried to make being a communist in some ideological sense as congruent to being more like you're a traitor. You're if you're an American and a communist, you'd sooner defend Russia than you would your own homeland, and that makes you suspect. And that
well, also conveniently leaving out the conversation, capitalism and the U.S. and CIA purposefully destabilizing and replacing governments.
Yeah.
Who are even if they're
Chile,
fascist, they don't
Argentina.
Give a shit. Yeah.
Like you could probably just name every country in South America at some point. Right. They've done it. Yeah. So yeah, we'll definitely I think that will be an interesting topic. I'd love to sink my teeth into that with you, and we will do that next week, 8 p.m. Let's get the theme song pulled up to play us out because it's just so fun to do that. Oh, it's been looping this whole time. I just had the volume down. All right, everybody. Next week, 8 p.m. Stay rough. Yeah, the Red Scare on the tick.